All right, today we're going to tackle a microscopic but frankly formidable organism, the parasitic protozoan Cryptosporidium Parvum. You can't see it, but it's a major player in diarrheal disease around the globe. It's a really fascinating case study in how resilient a parasite can be, and it poses some huge challenges for doctors and for public health officials.
So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get to know the organism itself. Then, we'll walk through its incredibly clever life cycle. After that, we'll look at the disease it causes, cryptosporidiosis, talk about the challenges in diagnosis and treatment, and wrap up with the most important part, prevention and control.
Okay, first things first, let's get a clear definition of what exactly we're dealing with when we talk about Cryptosporidium. So, at its most basic, Cryptosporidium parvum is a tiny parasite you can find pretty much anywhere in the world. Its favorite place to set up shop is in the lining of the small intestine, and in some really severe cases, it can spread to other places, like the stomach or even the respiratory system. This is the bug that's directly responsible for the disease we call cryptosporidiosis.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, especially from a public health perspective. There are two main species that cause trouble for humans. You've got Cryptosporidium hominis, which pretty much sticks to humans. But then you have C. parvum, and this one is zoonotic. That's a critical difference. It means it can infect a whole range of mammals, including us, but also livestock like cattle, which then become these huge reservoirs that can pass the infection on to people.
So how does this thing actually work? To really get a handle on why it's such a successful pathogen, you have to appreciate its life cycle. It's an elegantly designed and incredibly robust system that lets it survive out in the world and spread so darn effectively.
The real key to its success all comes down to its infective stage, which is called the oocyst. It's tiny, we're talking 4 to 6 micrometers, but it's built like a tank. It has this thick wall that makes it incredibly tough. It can handle high temperatures, most disinfectants, and here's the kicker that makes it a true public health nightmare: it's resistant to the standard levels of chlorine we use in our drinking water. That resilience is its superpower. It means only really powerful treatments like ozone can reliably knock it out.
So how does it get from one host to another? Well, it travels the classic fecal-oral route, and it is brutally effective. An infected host, human or animal, sheds millions, sometimes billions, of these tough little oocysts in their feces, and they're infectious right away. They contaminate water, food, or just surfaces, and then all it takes for a new host to accidentally swallow a handful of them, and the cycle starts all over again.
Okay, so we know how it spreads. Let's talk about what happens when it does. The disease itself, cryptosporidiosis. And when we talk about how this disease plays out, there is one single factor that matters more than anything else: the immune status of the person who's infected.
So after someone swallows the oocysts, they don't get sick right away. There's an incubation period, which can be anywhere from a couple of days to 2 full weeks before any symptoms actually show up.
And this slide right here gets to the absolute heart of the clinical challenge. In a person with a healthy immune system, the infection might not even cause any symptoms at all. And if it does, it's usually a pretty standard case of watery diarrhea that goes away on its own, what a lot of people call traveler's diarrhea. But in someone who's immunocompromised, like an AIDS patient, it's a completely different story. The diarrhea can become profuse, chronic, just unrelenting. It can lead to severe dehydration, major electrolyte problems, and drastic weight loss. It can be an incredibly difficult and even life-threatening condition.
Okay, let's shift gears and get practical. How do we actually identify this parasite in the lab? And maybe more importantly, what on earth can we do to treat it?
So, you have a patient who presents with all the classic symptoms. The next step, of course, is getting that definitive lab confirmation. But how do you actually do that, given how incredibly tiny this parasite is? Well, the standard go-to method starts with a stool sample. Because the oocysts are so small and basically transparent, you need a special stain to see them. The best one for the job is the modified Zeal-Nielsen stain. It takes advantage of that tough oocyst wall and makes them pop under the microscope as these very distinct little pink spheres. If we need higher sensitivity or want to get more specific, we can move on to more advanced tests like PCR to look for the parasite's DNA or an EIA to detect its antigens.
So, we've found it. Now for the treatment. And this is where we hit a pretty significant wall. Unlike a lot of other infections, there is no single, reliable, magic bullet drug for cryptosporidiosis. It's notoriously difficult to treat.
So, since there's no silver bullet, the management strategy has to be multi-pronged. First, there's a drug called nitazoxanide, which can sometimes help in people with healthy immune systems, but its effectiveness is limited.
Second, and this is absolutely key for immunocompromised patients, the best thing you can do is treat the underlying condition. For an AIDS patient, that means starting antiretroviral therapy, or ART. You're not treating the bug, you're boosting the host's own immune system so it can clear the infection itself. And finally, for every single patient, aggressive supportive therapy is vital. We're talking about replacing fluids, electrolytes, and nutrients to fight off that severe dehydration.
So, when you have a bug that's this tough to kill in the environment and so hard to treat in a patient, what's left? Well, prevention. It becomes our single most powerful weapon against Cryptosporidium.
And these strategies for control, they aren't some kind of crazy high-tech solution. It really comes down to getting the absolute basics of public health right. We're talking about breaking that chain of transmission. Things like proper waste disposal to protect our water, good old-fashioned hand washing, making sure drinking water is safe by boiling or filtering it, washing our produce well, and maybe most importantly, public education, so people actually know the risks and how to protect themselves.
And all of this leads us to one final and pretty sobering question to think about. The fact that this parasite is so resistant to chlorine, which is the backbone of our municipal water systems, creates a huge vulnerability. It really forces us to ask, is our current water infrastructure truly ready to handle a large-scale contamination event? And that's a question that public health officials are constantly grappling with.